are gonna penetrate decent. Comment if you think this is gonna break. I don't think so. Alright guys, we're here working on Beast 2 again. As you guys can see, it's now becoming fall. Over the last few days, we've been getting just leaves everywhere. Anyways, I'd like to get this thing going before snow. So I guess let's get on this thing right now. Picked up an ignition coil. Maybe you guys saw my short there of the ignition coil that I got from my boss. This right here is a pull start pulley that fits on the top and bolts through these two bolts into the flywheel, where I can hook a pull rope on this and yank it. Because even though I haven't been documenting it very much on my YouTube channel here, there has been a lot of problems for me with the factory electric starters on these, where they strip out the nylon gear or the actual Bendix itself strips out. So I'm done with doing that. I don't care. Maybe I'll just muscle it and pull start this guy. I don't know. We'll have to see. So just as a beginning start off, whatever, this thing hasn't run in multiple years. I don't know if I've mentioned that or not, but I think it was probably July 2023 this thing last ran. So it's been a while, but I have the pull start pulley installed on the top of the flywheel. Have the coil in there and in theory gapped, not sure. Now it's just to sort out the fuel system. I suspect this carburetor is going to be kind of plugged up, but we'll see. Tilt the seat up after I undo this bolt. That's how we fuel this thing up. And I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but it's bone dry in there. There is absolutely nothing in there. So I'm gonna fuel up and maybe let's just see if this thing runs. I have a kill wire hooked up too, by the way. So in case something goes majorly wrong, then maybe that'll be a good idea. All right, so how the fuel system is on this thing is at the bottom of this tank, there's a fuel valve, which I guess is currently on still. And then there is this gigantic electric fuel pump, which is way too big for it, but whatever. It's got 3/8 line running from the front to the back and in through the bottom of the chassis and in through there up to the carb. And so this is our fuel pump wiring, our quick disconnect if we need to. And so now I guess let's just hook this pump up and prime this carb. We'll see if it works or not. Can hear that pump got way quieter. That means it's made pressure. Oh, there's a fuel leak. Not only is it coming out right there, so that's got enough fuel to run now, but there's a hole right there in that line. Oh, right there in the line. So that's no good. All right, guys. So we definitely have fuel to the carb now. So I'm gonna set you guys up on a stand and I'm gonna try to start this thing. All right, guys. I poured a little bit of gas down the carb throat. Let's see if it'll go. Let's go. All right, well, the next thing we got to work on here is this choke, because it seems to be kind of seized up. This cable is not really moving that nice. So I'm gonna, oh, it is actually moving. Oh, there we go. Now it'll open. I was gonna say it won't open, but there it is. So I'm gonna electrical tape around this fuel line so we can hear this thing run again without it spurting fuel everywhere and with the pump on. So it's actually getting fuel to the carb, because I'm pretty sure it didn't have a lot in it and it stalled out. But now that we know it runs, I'm going to put the top cover on it so I don't got to hold the oil dipstick in. All right, guys, I have the fuel line fixed up kind of on Beast 2. I got the electrical tape on it, so we're going to go ahead and start this thing up. All right, let's see if she'll start now, folks. Little tiny bit of go-go juice down the old carburetor. I mean, like one little pop right there, maybe that's something. So we know the thing runs, so that's going to be good. That engine's going to be fine. I think my fuel pump quit working. Nope, it's still going and it's warm. No more of that. So yeah, I think the fuel pump is fine. Engine runs great now that we have gas to it. So I want to see if we can fit a 6-gear transaxle in here. If we can, then we got to figure out a way of holding one axle shaft solid, which is this side, so we can run our sprocket off of that side to drive this little tiny sprocket right here on this chain drive side. This, what do you guys call these? Foot, footy, or some other thing? I've heard them called foot and footy before. I have no idea what to call them. But this is a 3865 series. I think it's very similar to a Spicer 4360. Either way, it doesn't really matter. If these shorter mounts line up with the holes that we've made already on these mounts, that'll be awesome. Only thing is, I don't know if these axle carriers right here, how they split wider, are going to clear the frame or not, or if I'm going to have to notch them out. And then I guess we'll figure out everything else after that. So basically everything on this machine is engineered pretty janky right now. As you can see, there is a subframe connector, goes across right here to here. And in behind here, don't know if you guys can see that or not, but that's a full custom fabricated subframe that goes from top to bottom on the frame. Mounts the swing arm axle in so that we can have some frame stiffness in the back. That mounts the thing. This is for our other bolt-on subframe connector for this side, so we could pull the FNR out when they blew up, which happened very often. I've been through 2 of them and haven't been through a single lap around the yard already. So I'm gonna try to get this in that hole and flipped up there. We'll see what happens though. I have this thing jacked up a little bit on my ATV jack just to try it out. Looks like the 6-gear may fit in this hole, and with these mounts, I think the mounts are the same spacing. Only issue I'm running into right now, this triangular brace thing is hitting the side of the case for me trying to wiggle it around it, but this is gonna have to come off, and then we'll be able to see if it fits. I kind of forgot just how bad my welds were before. That was fully welded. The entire seam of this was fully welded to this. And I just broke this off with my hand. Grabbed onto this and twisted it off. No penetration with that weld. Alright guys, so I want to show you guys right now. I got that almost all the way up in the hole. Look how close those mounts are. I can't quite get it further in the hole. So I think I'm going to have to do some clearancing on some more stuff down below, because apparently the FNR is a considerably smaller transaxle. It's a really tight fit, but I managed to get this side bolted up. Only issue I'm running into right now is that this side doesn't quite line up. All right, so right there. I'm gonna end up having to cut some notches into here, weld some bolts in to mount this. That's how it's gonna end up having to be. Provided that our chain, haven't tested this yet, but provided that when it's straight, that it lines up with this without being in the case. I think it's going to be right about here. I'm not sure though. I have to also go get the other spare FNR transaxle and figure out how to make the hub come off of it so I can fit it on this shaft, and then figure out how to lock these 2 shafts together, because if I just lock that one, it'll wear out the inner differential by spinning it, because they're just not meant to do that. They're not a 90-degree box. Okay guys, quick update. I got the 6-gear transaxle kind of mounted in the Beast 2. My idea here is that I've notched out this bracket right here and here for these bolts to fit into it. But I'm probably just going to weld these bolts directly to this plate right here and just have them as studs so that the nut can just go on the bottom. All right, so we're out here working on Beast 2 again. Just wanted to show you guys an underside view of this thing, as well as what we're going to be doing for our pulley setup here. So basically underneath here, the most important thing to show you is the fact that the steering rack is loose. All right, so that's got to get tightened down. And the steering rack is also just blown right out right there. So we're probably going to end up having to stick a different steering rack in this at some point here. But this is a custom mount right there to mount the main steering support bearing. This is our main steering U-joint shaft right here. It goes all the way up through this hole to the steering wheel. And so that's our steering. This right here is a 30 series centrifugal clutch, which is covered in oil right now. And it runs a 5/8 by 58 V-belt that runs to this tensioner and this V idler, which is going to be holding on right here. So the idea behind this is that we're going to be able to stick a 3 or 3.5 inch pulley on here. That's what we had on the FNR. And in theory, all this belt system should just line up as it was before. Then we're going to end up having to build a shifter, which comes off of this little square peg right here. So I'm unsure on how we're going to end up building that, but we'll see. Maybe I'll just pop it into first gear and just cruise around with it to start with, and then we'll see what happens. I don't know. Either way, I'm going to go ahead and stick our new pulley on here, and we'll see what happens. Okay, so my idea for this is originally we were running aluminum pulleys on these pulley swap lawnmowers, but as I learned with a bunch of my other racing mowers, they do get hot when the belt slips and they explode. So what I've now resorted to is these steel ones right here, like this guy. We're gonna end up having to shave the back end of this guy down to fit on the shaft, otherwise it'll stick too far out the top. We won't be able to get the C-clip on. So once I shave this down, we're gonna be able to shove it onto this guy after I find a Woodruff key, because it's missing out of this right there. So I'll find a Woodruff key, shove it in there, shave this down, shove it in there, and then we'll be able to see if our belt's gonna line up or not, because I'm pretty sure it should be fine. Okay, so before we really shave this down much, as you can see, I just did a test pass initially. Then we're just gonna shave this pulley down to where it's probably right at the top of the set screw. That's about how far I had to race it down, shave it down on the other racing mower that I got. All right, so yeah, guys, with the rear of the pulley shaved right down to that set screw, you can see that the C-clip will fit right on that groove. It's not going to have a lot of up and down play at all. So I'm going to go find a Woodruff key for this, and we'll slap this pulley on. Actually, we can just check for belt lengths right now. I'm going to go ahead and try to get this on here, and we'll see what happens. All right, so I finally did get this belt to fit. It's a 5/8 by 58. Really should have had a 5/8 by 60 on there to make this transaxle work. All right, guys, so our final belt tension setup looks like this. Centrifugal clutch to our flat idler, belt runs on top of it, because I remembered why we built this, and that's because it's a belt guard. It holds that right on that pulley. It can never come off. Then it goes down to this guy. We're gonna end up building a belt guard for this eventually, but just not right now, because I want to see if it drives. But we are gonna, I still gotta go get a Woodruff key for this, so I'll slip this pulley off, put a Woodruff key in, slide that pulley in, put that clip back on that shaft, and then I want to see if this transaxle spins or not. This transaxle right here has got a Woodruff key in it. We're gonna steal that one and put it in our one on Beast 2. Boop. Right there. Alright, with your Woodruff key installed, that's what it should look like. Yeah, some people think that this is an integrated part of the shaft. It really actually isn't. All it does is it holds this on there, and the reason why it isn't integrated is because if this ever shears off, you can change it without having to just weld your pulley to there to get a positive connection. Now, in theory, I should be able to get my clip on there, and we should be good. Right, so with our pulley installed, we can now put this shifter into first gear. So you can see when I turn this down here, that axle is turning. See the keyway coming around, and then that one down there is also turning. This thing is still open, so if I turn this right here, then it'll spin that one backwards from the other one. All right, and before we go very much further, I'm gonna go ahead and finish this transaxle mount. I'm gonna actually weld these bolts to here now that I know that this concept should work. And then I'm also gonna find a nut for this bolt right here to mount it to the transaxle, because we don't need only 3 mounting nuts on something that really should have 6 bolts, but we're not gonna be running front mounts on. Okay, disclaimer here, anybody who's a welder, look away. I ran out of make gas, so ugly, very ugly. As here is our build. We now have the 6th gear mounted in there. It is locked into first gear. No idea if it'll be able to pop out or not. I assume probably not. But we got the belt system hooked up underneath here, and now we just got to hook up the chain, and then we can jack this thing up at the back and see if we can get these wheels to spin. So I'm gonna go get the old transmission right now, and we're gonna see if we can get the hub with the sprocket that goes on there to come off. All right, so I went and found this original transaxle. This is our hub and stuff we're looking to rob off of this axle shaft if we can get it off. But it looks like it's pretty rusted on there right now, so I'll try to get it off here. All right, got the set screws backed off. You can see they're both backed off. And so now I got the 3-jaw puller on here, and we'll see if we can get this off the shaft. If you guys were wondering, these normally are a round shaft. No anything aside from this double D, double flat spot or whatever cut into it to originally mount the wheels. So to mount this sprocket on the FNR transaxle, we ended up cutting a flat spot into there and just shoving a keyway in there. That's how I ended up mounting it last time. But we're going to pull this off now to put on that 6th gear so we can hopefully have a runner driver. All right, guys, so I can't seem to get that hub off that other transaxle. I'm going to have to put it in a shop press or something at my work. But in the meantime, we can see if this thing still wants to run good and if the transmission wants to go forward or not with this clutch. So we'll see if this axle spins or not. I'm going to set you guys up on a stand here and start this thing. I currently have the fuel pump priming up right now, so we can see if this thing will run. Guys, my boss has this gigantic puller right here that we're going to use as a 24mm head on here. It's pretty big. Anyways, it grips this sprocket way better than my tiny puller that I have at my house. So let's see if I can get this off with this puller. If not, then I have no idea what I'm going to end up doing. Probably just getting another sprocket and hub. Guys, finally got the sprocket off the shaft. It's just sitting on the floor right there. Now I got to clean up the vise here because it's all greasy from this stupid transaxle. Guys, so now that I finally have the sprocket off of the other transaxle, we can try to stick it on this axle once I move the booster cables out of the way, of course. And we'll see if this will work or not. So I guess stick around for that. All right, so our next step here is, because this is a keyed hub where it's got a keyway built into it. That's how it retains itself on the shaft. It's not a weld on or anything. Although we may have to weld it on. We'll see if it spins the key or not. Either way, this thing has a key, but only to this part of the shaft. We need the back of that hub to be basically touching this edge, if not fully touching the edge of this case. So I'm going to have to cut this keyway in again. So I'm going to just stick this straight up and try to get it with a grinder and a zip disc. Try to continue this keyway all the way out to here. We'll see what happens. Right, guys, I've never cut a keyway into this shaft or any other shaft, to be honest, with a grinder before. I know normally most people use a milling machine or a lathe, but I don't have either of those. So we'll see if I can make this happen with a grinder. Alright, so I wouldn't say it was the best job at doing this, but whatever. The keyway ends about like there. I can't quite get at it with this big zip disc. I'll have to wait until I've cut some more stuff to make this keyway actually full length, but it should be enough with this on here. Should be just enough to make this fit. So we'll see what happens here. Should be able to ram a key in there. I know it's way wider at the end there, but we have the separator in the middle there. So we'll see if we can fit a keyway in there. My little chunk of key stock right here. So let's see if it fits. Okay, this looks pretty straight to me. I'd say that looks pretty in line. From the back, you'll usually be able to tell. And I mean, hold on. That looks pretty in line to me. So let's see if this thing will work or not. I'm gonna try to shove this chunk of key stock in here now. It went in a little bit, but I think it'll be good enough. So now I want to lock this axle shaft, jack this thing up on jack stands, or at least on my HEV jack, that guy right there. And then we also have a battery for my racing mower, which we're gonna borrow for this to see if the fuel pump will turn on. And then we'll see if we got the belt tension or right or not. I think it's too tight right now because it was spinning the transmission when it was idling before. So I think I'm gonna have to back some of that belt tension off, but we'll see what happens. All right, guys, hopefully you can see this. I'm gonna go start Beast 2 and we're gonna see if those rear tires start spinning or not. I have the fuel pump priming, so in theory it should start. Fuel pump keeps cutting out, so I gotta figure out why that is. And then I've reattached the vice grips way tighter over here because apparently they were kind of loose over here. So we'll see if we can get those back wheels to spin faster than that. That was spinning the back wheels though, so that's good. So maybe we'll stick it in a higher gear later on. I don't know. All right, that's all I'm going to be running it tonight because it's starting to get late. This thing is smoking a lot. I'm not really sure why, but it looks like those vice grips were almost holding as good as they should have been. They were smacking around inside that fender I could see from the other side. But as you guys saw, the back wheels do spin on this, which is pretty good. So we'll see. Maybe I will pull this transaxle out for sure and weld it up, but I got to go get welding gas tomorrow. So I guess that'll be another day. I guess. Let me pull these vice grips off. Ooh. Might have sacrificed a pair of vice grips for this video. Keep in mind, guys, that is one of our 6 gears. We have 6 gears in this thing. Look how fast those tires were spinning then. We really aren't going to need much more than first gear in this thing. Like, really, first gear is going to be nuts. And we have 6. Like, we're not even going to be able to use more than, like, third gear at most, if we can even get into second. So we'll see. We'll probably end up gearing this thing down at some point here where it will be actually usable in the higher gears. Alright guys, update on Beast 2. I'm going to go ahead and pull this transaxle out now that we know it'll spin the tires. Now I want to take this transaxle out and weld this diff together so that we can have both axles welded together, because holding it with vice grips on this end is going to wear out the diff, and it's not actually like a permanent solution by any means. It's just to see if the diff is actually going to work or not. So now I'm going to go ahead and drop this axle down, drop that side down so I can get this chain off, and then hopefully get the sprocket off of here, and then we'll see. Maybe I'll be able to weld the diff today. I don't know. Just inside of my boss's hot seat here is, in theory, is the diff for Beast 2. So I'm gonna pull this out and then I'll be able to weld it up when I get home. So this right here is our main center section pieces. This is our center pin. These are our 2 spider gears that go on here and fit into this slot on the ring gear. These 2 gears are stuck to the axles. They are a splined axle shaft and they fit right in there, no problem. So we're gonna go ahead and weld these up. As you can see, my boss's Hotsy did an amazing job cleaning up all these things. If you don't know what a Hotsy is, it's essentially like a steam cleaner for parts. And yeah, it did an amazing job on this. This should be way easier to weld than, say, like the ones I did in the John Deere, where it was super messy and actually lit on fire on me. So yeah, I mean, everything is awesome. So I'm going to go get the other bits of the transaxle, and we'll set them on the table here, and we'll prep that case to fit these axles back into it so we can weld it up. Anyone who knows what they're looking at right now will notice that this transaxle is actually flipped upside down. This is the top half of the case. The reason why I take these apart like this is because in under here, you can see that right there is our little shifter detent ball. If you take it apart right side up, usually this shifter shaft will move up, especially if there's no shifter on it like this, no shifter plate, then it'll move up enough for that ball to fall out and into your grease. So it'll fall into this and just disappear into oblivion. So that's why I always take them apart upside down, because they always seem to be staying in there no problem. As long as you flip them over right after you take all the bolts out and then just split it, everything's got to be upside down. Anyways, I have this main case pretty clean, so I'm gonna go ahead and reassemble all of my center section here, and we're gonna figure out how we're gonna weld this up. I haven't decided yet whether we're gonna do just a standard welded diff or what we're gonna do, but I think we might add a twist to this one. So I'm thinking what we're gonna do here, there is a channel I've been following for years called Redneck Computer Geek, and he has this amazing locker setup called the locker block, and we're gonna try that out today, I think. What it involves is a piece of square tubing that goes in between here with a hole for the center pin, so you can run your center pin through the center to hold your main spider gears in, and then you can have way more welding surface. You can weld all the way along all four sides of that square tubing, as well as the main spider gears inside of the 2x2 square tubing right before you weld all this section together, which I think is pretty cool. So I think that's what we're going to try today. So I'm going to go get some square tubing and we'll make this happen. This fits. Oh, come on, dude. Come on, baby. Like that. Okay. So these fit like that. And his locker block idea runs across both of these gears. And as you can see, that is way too wide, because both of these outside edges are supposed to fit just inside of these gears, so that they actually fit right in here. So the main center bit of the square tubing here fits in between these axle shafts, so you don't have to nip the ends off of these guys to make them clear. So I'm gonna either modify this to make it fit, or I may have to go get some other square tubing to make this work, but I'd really like to try this idea out, so we'll see what happens. So here's my concept on what I'm gonna do to make this 2x2 square tubing fit as 1 1/4, as what fits in here. So this right here is our 2x2 square tubing that I have now sliced in there. Then I sliced it diagonally. The reason why I did this is because now we can take this one, move it down like that until we're at 1 1/4, weld these two together, chop the ends off of it, and be done. Then we can go ahead, drill our 5/8 center hole, and make this fit in there. Alright, so what I got going here is this little chunk of square tubing and a spacer in there, clamping these two together in the vise so that they can't go together more. Now I'm going to be able to weld this seam, dry it, grind it down, and do the same on the other side. Cut these slots off, and we will have a matching pair of square tubing. So I folded these corners in. We're gonna end up laying a little bit of a weld in both of those, and I did the same on the other side. You guys probably can't see, but right there, the camera's probably not gonna focus. Either way, it doesn't really matter. I'm gonna fix that, and then we're gonna see if this will fit in between these two spider gears, because they should fit, but we really don't know at this point, unless we test it right now. Yep, it's gonna be perfect. All right. Well, let's get back to this. Well, that wasn't near as exciting as I was hoping. That water cooled this down so fast. I'm now holding it with my hand literally 20 seconds after I was done with that video clip of it dunking in the water. I'm easily able to hold it in here, and it's cold to the touch. That works quite well to quench it. Anyways, I'm gonna get rid of this little piece of slag in there because you can see it gets in the way, and the ones on this end. And then we're gonna make this fit in our transaxle. Okay, so now that we have our locker block skinnied up right here, enough that it'll fit inside this ring gear with these two spider gears, we need to figure out what our overall length this direction is gonna be. So how we're gonna determine that is we're gonna go from the inside of this spider gear to the inside of this spider gear. Both axles are touching the outside of the case here with their appropriate shims on each side. So what we can do now is grab our tape measure, and in this case, we are what appears to be 1 3/8. That's what I would say it is. So then at that point, we take this and figure out that that is a lot wider. Wow, that is a lot wider. A lot of that could come out. Like this entire section right here could come out if that's what that actually is. Huh. So looking at this, if I tilt this, we are gonna have to slice a little bit off of this end, so actually out of the center here, and weld it back up to skinny this up to, again, 1 1/4, just so it fits in the center here, which is no problem. I'll just do that off camera though, because you guys don't need to hear the boredom of me grinding and welding. Guys, the locker block right here is now a square-ish shape, so we're gonna go ahead and drill the hole right there on that green dot for our center pin to go through. I believe it's a 1/2 inch hole, I'm not 100% sure. Other thing that we realized while designing this specific setup is we could have sliced the pipe diagonally this direction and sliced as needed off this corners, stick them together, weld it back up, and it would have become our 1 1/4 square tubing. We'll end up doing that on a future video here when we're building a second diff for off-road machine, because we're building a welded diff for the winter, because right now it's just on an open diff again. Because the solid shaft broke a while ago. Also, while this is apart, I'm going to be cleaning up this keyway that I cut into here, because as you can see, it's kind of ugly. So we'll get that sorted out, and then yeah, get this hole drilled in there for the center pin so I can get this lock. The concept behind this is that we can weld in there all the way along here. Anyways, what we're going to end up actually doing is we are going to be able to weld this spider gear, that one on this axle, to this locker block, to this spider gear, to this spider gear, this spider gear and this spider gear together, and then also possibly to the locker block if we can get at it. Then all this comes out, ring gear comes off, all this goes back on, and we can do our full welding. Okay, big problem. See that axle? That axle ain't straight. See how it bounces up and down in that case? I'm hoping it's just a spacer thing because everything's expanded so much. I'm going to let this cool down overnight. Worst case scenario, we're going to have to just rock this. This is our main drive axle, so this isn't even one we could just cut off. So we'll see. We might just have a worn out case later on. The only issue with that is that if this is moving up and down, this is going to wreck our chain. So this might be a off-road mower diff now that goes on something that doesn't have to matter so much. Because, I mean, yeah, that's not good. All right, guys, it is 10 o'clock the next morning. And so now we're just going to test. Yep, we still got to balance the axle. So that's not really good. One thing I'm going to note is the fact that because this is bouncy, this could wear out the case right here. It could be a problem for our chain and sprocket. Like basically all of the above. If you're counting something for all of the above, it's going to be this. So that really sucks, because with a chain and sprocket on this end, we cannot have any up and down movement of this axle at all. It has to stay dead straight, otherwise it'll twist that chain side to side and stretch it and break it. All right, so now that I have the entire internals all put back together, I'm going to go ahead and slap that half of the case back on here, flip this over, bolt it all together, and see if we have a axle shaft on this side that rubs against the case and moves it up and down. If it holds steady, then I'm happy. Also, this has to make full rotations without having many tight spots in it, because that CVT clutch is not going to like tight spots. Okay guys, so I got the transaxle all bolted together, and because I somehow lost the woodruff key for the pulley, I now have a pair of vice grips holding this on there. So I'm going to try to crank this, but it feels really, really tight the entire way. So it'll do one full rotation there. So I guess I'll just run it a bunch of times. It is very tight, but just run it until it becomes more loose. Hey guys, tore the diff back apart. What is this main axle shaft? Being that I can twist the entire case up with it without it even trying to budge. So I've just got too many spacers in here. This is just jammed too tight right there. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove one of these spacers, and this is probably gonna be just fine. Okay guys, so all I did is I removed this spacer. You can see how thin this is. It's pretty thin. And, I mean, there's a tiny bit of side-to-side play, but not a lot. And this turns no problem. So I'm going to go ahead and reassemble this, and we'll see if it turns nice. Then we may not even have to break anything in, because really the thing that's changed in here is that these axles are actually sitting out a little bit wider, because they expanded and shrunk to a different size after they were done welding. Okay, well, I would say, being that I can turn it with 2 fingers and it's actually turning the shaft, I'm going to call this one good. I'm going to go ahead and put all the bolts back in, make sure it'll still turn that easy, but there's no pulley or nothing on that shaft, and I can just twist it with 2 fingers like this. And I mean, yeah, it's twisting the axle, so that should be awesome. Okay, well, that thing is a lot less tight than it was, so I'm going to call it probably good enough. Let me go ahead and we'll put this in the mower. We'll see maybe what might work tomorrow. I don't know. I'm at work tomorrow, so either tomorrow or in a couple days. All right, so I don't know how much of this you guys can see because it's dark out already. This mount right here for this side of the transaxle probably took me 25 minutes to get in, and I'm not even done yet, just to get these 2 bolts started, because they are such a pain in the butt to get at, because you got to go in behind the transaxle, which there really is no room for. I can show you guys better in the daylight, but I'm going to tighten these 2 up, and then I'm going to lift this up into there and tighten nuts down on those. And then the transaxle should actually be mounted up physically, and then I'll be able to put the belt on, get the gear on and all that tomorrow. And I guess, like, yeah, whatever, figure it out, get her going.